Okay. All right. It is, sorry, 4:03. We are recording to the cloud and live on YouTube. So, and we have a quorum. So thank you everybody for being here. Let me just pull up the agenda. 1 second. I think Jen sent around with the agenda copy of the minutes from the June 21st and July 19th meeting minutes. We'll do the June 21st meeting minutes. If anybody wants to make a motion or has any corrections, let's make a motion, then we'll see if there's any corrections.
Motion to accept the minutes, Arnie.
Second.
Second by Paul. Motion by Arnie, second by Paul. Any discussion? Any amendments to the minutes? I don't see anybody screaming or waving at me. So with that, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? None. Okay, motion carries. And so then we'll do the July 19th meeting minutes. I'll take a motion for that as well. Yeah, you have to have been here at the meeting, obviously.
Was I?
I think you were, Helen.
Yeah. All right, I'll make that motion.
Okay, sorry. I didn't put you on the spot. I hope. Motion by Helen, seconded by anybody else?
I'll second it.
Second.
Oh, was that PJ?
I think that was Shay.
Oh, Shay.
It looks
Sorry.
like Shay, yeah.
Yeah, were you here? You were here, Shay, right?
Yep.
Okay, seconded by Shay. All in favor? Any discussion? Any amendments? If none, motion on the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody nay? Great, motion carried. Okay, so we're super excited about today, and Francisco will tell you why we are looking at a document. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Francisco, and I've already obviously shared my screen, so you're on.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Believe it or not, it's our 21st meeting, which means we are so close to arriving at our destination. Our agenda this evening is we are going to show you what the draft plan looks like. The plan is currently being reviewed by Sharon in her office. And so it's not quite ready to share with you, but we want to give you a glimpse of the plan. Our sub-consultant, CH Planning, has done additional work on the build-out analysis of the downtown sites, which comprises of some really nice renderings. We want to show you how those came out. We've taken all the input we received from you in our 2 special working sessions, and thanks to everyone who participated. For the future land use map. So we've taken all those marked up maps and Sharon compiled those into one map with a bunch of notes. She got that to us, and we put our GIS mapping people to work and have come up with a draft future land use map to review with you. And then, as usual, we'll talk about our next steps.
Francisco, for 1 second, for anybody that is not a committee member that wants to watch, they can watch on the YouTube link, which is live stream, and only the members of the committee are being admitted into the Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Okay. So the draft POCD. This is our cover as it stands. We're constantly switching images in and out, but eventually I think we're going to land on images that we feel are representative of what we want to communicate. It spans almost 200 pages. That does include an appendix. And we came up with the term innovate to supplement the cover and the title of the plan as really a call to action. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we proceed here. The plan is organized by topic area, like a traditional plan. We have an introduction, and then each of our subject topic areas for which, we've talked about all these areas at length. And that's how the plan is organized. So it covers everything that we've reviewed in prior meetings and at our community engagement events as well. In addition to that, there's a section devoted to future land use. We have an implementation plan that summarizes all the plan's goals, strategies, action items, and finally an appendix, which is comprised mostly of a summary of our community engagement events. All right, here's a look at a couple of pages out of the plan. The plan is very visual. Some really good graphic design by my team. Very intentional use of images throughout the plan. Maps that are very legible and I think very interesting and very color rich. So we hope that you find it, easy on your eyes and very visually appealing as well. The organization, and we spent a couple of meetings talking about how the plan would be organized, and that is organized by the plan vision, which is on the page at right. Our topic areas, each topic area, like mobility, has a goal that's specific to that topic area, and we arrived at those goals together. We have a number of strategies supporting each goal and action items, and we've walked through those one by one with you as well. And then tying that all together are some themes, and this is going back a few meetings now, but we hashed those out pretty well. And these themes kind of cross all these different topic areas. And I'm sorry, someone have a question or comment? No? Okay. So the themes, we have 9 themes. There they are in front of you. They cross all our different topic areas. The theme of connect is more than about mobility. It's also about connecting communities and connecting people to jobs and that sort of thing. And so these themes do a really good job of uniting what could be otherwise these siloed topic areas. And then combined, those themes, the call to action for all those themes is to be innovative in our approach to solving Danbury's problems and moving forward. And so innovate is that key theme and call to action. We've, within the document, we've got maps and baseline conditions, and we've also included for each topic area a comment page. We received through the survey, which we had incredible participation in the online survey. It's been closed out for a while now, but we received over 3,000 individual comments. Some of them just a sentence and some of them paragraphs in length. And so a lot of our participants put a lot of thought and effort into taking the survey, and we try to extract comments that were really most relevant to the plan. Some of them in some ways critical, yet pointing out the need for those issues to be addressed by the plan, in which case the plan, I believe, directly addresses many of the critical comments that we've heard. So we have a range of comments ranging from very supportive and positive, glass halfway full, to some very critical, glass halfway empty. But we didn't want to basically discriminate against people who maybe have a very critical view of the changes that need to be made. We want their voice to be heard as well. So we included some comments here that really implore the city to take action to respond to the needs and issues that are being addressed by those comments. Okay. As I mentioned, the implementation plan, it's really an implementation summary. All of these strategies and actions are presented within the body of the plan, and each chapter ends with those strategies and actions. But here we put it all together in one place so that the implementation section of the plan can be a really convenient resource and reference for staff and for anyone else. In addition to that, within the implementation section, we identify the lead entity who's going to be really responsible for spearheading that effort, partner entities, whether within the city or external to the city, and then finally a priority level. And I think basically we're going to go with low, medium, high, and that'll help us establish what things should get started on first. These plans are sometimes organized around a time frame, near term, midterm, long term, sometimes year 1, year 2, year 3. The issue I find with that, having reviewed many of these plans and developed many of them, is that can be very discouraging when you review the plan 3 or 4 or 5 years later and you see that only a portion of what was projected to occur in the near term actually occurred. So in some ways it could be self-defeating. We want to set you up for failure. We don't want it to be discouraging at any point to see that you haven't accomplished a lot of what was identified as a near term or year 1 action. Because I think we all understand that not all of this is going to get done. And despite what may be the efforts of staff, commissions, individuals, yourselves, not everything's going to move forward, but it all needs to be on the table for moving forward. And I think the best we could do is point to the things that are really the highest priority so that the city can focus on those items, which isn't to say the other things that can't happen. And that's what we want to do with the priority level and identifying these as a priority level. On the left side of the page, you'll notice our themes across the top. And so here we're kind of checking the boxes with various strategies and actions. What themes do these directly address? And to some degree, that'll help us with the priority level. Actions that check more than one box with the themes, it probably going to suggest that those should be a higher priority because they're helping to address a lot of different issues that have come up throughout the planning process. All right, any questions on that?
Francisco,
Yes.
I noticed if you go back a couple of pages to the little balloons, the comments from people. One was so specific, yeah. So the Danbury should grow, but downtown Deer Hill Avenue, the Deer Hill Avenue one is so action specific. It's almost something that should be directed to the planning department, like an inspector. I'm not sure that belongs in a POCD that's going to be on file for 10 years. So I'm just wondering what.
Yeah.
The complaint is that the accusation is that there are houses that are being illegally used on Deer Hill as multifamily, which they shouldn't be, and that's something that normally we would get.
Yeah.
It would go through the council. It would go directly to. I'm a little uncomfortable having that in a POCD, but I don't know where you're going with that. I wasn't expecting these balloons, so that's my query.
Yeah, we tried to filter most of that.
I mean,
out.
if somebody said, "Hey,
Obviously,
let's keep an eye
Paul,
on,"
your audio is blurring
Yeah,
out.
Paul, you're going in and out. We can,
hey,
but,
I'll turn off. I'm going to turn off my mic.
okay.
Okay, and Paul, it might help if when you're speaking up, if you turn off your video, maybe your phone will have a little less data to send, and that might help. But I think we heard you.
Okay, I've done that.
Okay, great. We heard you loud and clear, and my team did try to. There were, like I mentioned, there were 3,000 comments, so we did try to filter these out and try to filter out anything that was really specific and not relevant. I think we clearly saw some relevance in this comment. That being said, once we make this document available to you and you have a chance to really read through all the comments, because we have 6 pages of these, by all means, mark it up. Anything that you feel is not appropriate for this document, let us know. And we've got another 2,900 comments to draw upon. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the generic comment that there's too many multifamilies or illegal housing, but this is so
Yeah.
specific, it's almost actionable. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, and as I mentioned, the appendix provides a summary of the feedback we received from the community from our focus group meetings, the public workshop summary, and survey summaries summary as well. Okay, any questions on the plan document? I think it's our goal in the next 2 weeks to finish reviewing that, depending on the extent of revisions that planning, that Sharon's department is asking for us to do. It'll take us a little bit of time to make some of those revisions. And we want to turn around and share it with you as soon as possible, definitely in advance of our meeting next month, so that you have at least a week, if not more, to review it going into that meeting. That way we can spend a bulk of that meeting talking about your impressions on the plan.
Yeah, and I know we'll talk about it at the end, but the meeting is, I believe, the 20th of September.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, we'll get it to you well in advance to give you more time to take a look at it.
Right. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, going back to our downtown build out analysis. As a reminder, we took a look at 3 sites, White Street, Pecioke Avenue, and off of Main Street where the Salvation Army is. And our subconsultant CH Planning, and you've seen these slides before, I'm just putting them back up there for some context and refresh your memories. They took a look at some building envelopes, made some recommendations as to how zoning could be modified, did a build out of the site with some recommended building typologies, and did some renderings for us. So here's an existing view down White Street, across the railroad tracks, of course, and this is what could fit on the site. And this is obviously some very modern looking or contemporary looking architecture, but that's the scale and the kind of setbacks and the kind of urban feel that is possible on the site if some of the zoning regulations are modified to allow for this type of development. Okay. Next site is Main and Center Streets, and next to St. Peter's Church, and there's the building envelope of what the current zoning allows, and a building study of what sort of building envelope could fit on the site once you account for parking. There's the look from Main Street. View of the site now, Salvation Army on the left, St. Peter's on the right. And a rendering of what the site could look like if it were redeveloped. And here the goal is to provide as continuous a street facade as possible, lower level restaurants, retail, upper floor housing. And the zoning, for the most part, permits this type of development now. What we didn't find that there were significant changes to the zoning that would need to occur to allow for this on Main Street and downtown district. One of the biggest constraints is parking. So the lower you can get those parking ratios, the more development you can get on the site is what it's coming down to. And this site, because the grade falls off from Main Street, really lends itself to structured parking on the back side and underneath. And the final site is Pecioke Avenue, and there's the development envelope of what could be allowed if the zoning were modified. Of course, it's an industrial district right now. The build out of the site with some buildings, a mix of townhouses and a larger apartment or condo building with an area for the transit center. The current street view, and what it could be. And so here you would have townhouses, and this is of course a modern type of architecture. It could be a more traditional architecture as well. And with the idea being is that the larger structure is set back a little closer to the rail tracks and off the edge of the road, so that this scale development lining the road is more compatible with what's across the street. And part of this site plan recommended some public functional open space, so we show playground there. Okay, so those renderings and all of that analysis is currently in the draft plan. We located it as a special section within the housing section of the plan, because it's really, most of these development types are really geared towards residential development. There's a retail component, but taking a look, the analysis of the zoning that we did, the recommendations really fall into alignment with supporting the development of housing in and around the downtown. Okay, we're moving at a pretty quick pace tonight, which is good. It's good. The draft future land use map. So this has been more than a month in the making. My team put together some draft base maps and plans to share with Sharon, and we had some discussions with her. We had some early ideas on where the focus should be. And of course, that was all presented to you. We gave you just an introduction to it last month. And we had 2 working sessions devoted to really hashing it out almost block by block, parcel by parcel in some cases. As a reminder, the future land use map is really intended to guide, well, first of all, it acts as a foundation to your zoning, but it's intended to guide any future zoning amendments and development by suggesting, what type of development, what type of land use is most appropriate in which areas of the city. And so this map highly corresponds with sewer and service areas. It's really, it's built upon your existing zoning. There's no radical departures from what the zoning currently allows in terms of what we're recommending for future land use. It's really a matter of pushing areas one way or another, or just preserving them as is. And so we feel we've got something that's very representative that will be an effective guide for land use policy and for zoning, and something that's going to encourage development, particularly housing development in the places where the infrastructure can best support it. And I've got some close-ups of this map, so I'm going to move on to a close-up. The land use categories, we took a meeting or 2 to work through those in details. So I hope those all look pretty familiar to you. We did at our last meeting, I believe we agreed to redefine this as medium to high density residential. And the neighborhood commercial, we might change the name of this to neighborhood commercial mixed use. I think within the definition of this one, we agreed that some residential development mixed use was probably appropriate. But everything else should look pretty familiar. With the regional mall category was a newer category we'd created for the mall area. And so let me move on to a zoom in of that. The lightest gray areas, which comprise really most of the area of the map, that is your rural residential area. So the primary goal for those areas is really to preserve open space, the natural landscape, while allowing for residential development. The medium gray is as a reminder, is our neighborhood residential. And those are areas where you tend to have smaller lots, where if you were to walking on the street, it definitely feels like a neighborhood, not like a rural place. And those correspond with certain zoning districts such as RA20 and a couple others. And then the darkest gray is our medium to higher density areas where we're encouraging higher density developments, whether it's townhouses or something higher density than that. And those are pretty much exclusively located within sewer and water service areas, and generally within good proximity of major corridors, transit, that sort of thing.
Yeah, can I just interject one thing, Francis?
Go ahead,
And
please.
that is that just so we're all clear, and for anybody who may be listening or watching this, is that we're not saying that there aren't our 40 areas of the city that aren't a neighborhood feel. It's just, and that's the differentiation between the colors. But it was really based on kind of they're in the water and sewer proposed, either in the existing sewer service area or the proposed sewer service area. And that's more of the distinction than, so I don't want people to think, oh, it's, you know, some of, again, those neighborhoods up, you know, off of King Street or Chambers or something aren't neighborhoods, because they are neighborhoods to those who live there. But we had to kind of make some different, you know, have a little bit of a difference. And so that's the explanation, which will be in the text. So I just want to be sure.
And those areas do tend to be lower in density.
Right.
Than, the areas we show in medium gray. Okay, so this is the northern part of City, Candlewood Lake. Obviously here, the reservoirs here. And I'll just go on to the next slide. So now we're really looking at the heart of the city. This is the I-84 corridor that winds through here. And the orange is corridor commercial. The purple's industrial. The salmon color areas, your downtown, and you'll probably notice the fact that it expands, this area expands beyond the central business district boundaries, expands to the east to include some currently industrial areas around the railroad track, Pacquiao Avenue, to the north into CG20 areas, to the south as well. And a little bit at the margins, east and west. And this is, you know, a direct response to the need to expand the area that is formerly the downtown to provide areas for growth for higher density residential and mixed use development.
And it also shares some common locations, I guess, with the TOD study district area. Yep. From the 2019 TOD study. So.
Correct. Out to the west is the PND area, or the summit and surrounding developments is what we call the West Side mixed use area. And here is the mall area, the regional mall area. And as a reminder, that category is intended to provide additional flexibility, more flexibility for that site than what the current zoning allows, to encourage a range of development from commercial to light industrial to other types of development that would be appropriate for that area. And then if we go to the south, what we see is the green is all open space. And so that it is a combination of different open space types. We colored it all green for the purposes of this map. We do have other maps within the plan that specifically identify the open space type, whether it's a park, whether it's land trust, whether it's state property, whatever it may be. For the purposes of this map, it's sufficient to say this is open space and this is area that's not recommended for development. And so this open space is comprised of city parks, land trust properties, conservation properties that are held by the city for conservation, open space undeveloped properties held by the city, open space undeveloped properties held by the state as well, of which the state holds a lot of property of that nature along Route 7 that was originally purchased for the Super 7 highway. And so we show all of that in green. And Given the location of most of these areas outside sewer and water service areas, along sensitive natural resources, it seems to make sense those areas remain as open space and not be targeted for any type of development. And,
Sorry, just to interject,
Right.
and everybody knows that all those properties along Route 7 are like this, the majority of the state-owned properties are swampland. I mean, it's
yeah, they're
completely
heavily
wet,
wooded,
so, right, heavily wooded and
swamps,
wet.
steep slopes, whatever it may be. They're not very developable as it is.
Right, correct.
Right. Okay. Any questions about this map as it appears? And we, will include this map. This map will be included within the document itself, and we could probably get you a separate PDF file that will allow you to zoom in real tight, read the street names so you can orient yourself. You can review this map in addition to the plan document. Okay. All right, let's keep moving. We're setting a record for time on this meeting, which is good. No one's arguing with the direction we're headed on anything. We're doing good.
Good, thank you.
So our remaining project schedule. Next month, and I pretty much laid this out for you already, we will review the draft POCD. That way we can review it prior to submission to the Planning Commission itself, Council, and WestCog for their review. So we want to get it to exactly where you think it should be before we submit it to those other bodies. And as I mentioned, we'll get it to you in advance of that meeting, so you have plenty of time to review and discuss at that meeting. In September, or October, excuse me, we will use our October meeting to review any feedback received from the Commission, Council, and WestCog, and agree upon any revisions to the plan as may be warranted or needed. And our October meeting will be, I believe, will be our last meeting as a committee, as an internal working meeting, that is. In November, we plan to do final review of the plan. That's assuming any review is necessary based upon feedback from the Commission, Council, and WestCog. If we end up doing a lot of rework to the document based upon their feedback, then we likely will have to meet in November just to make sure we're all on the same page with how we handled that. I'm hoping there isn't. I'm hoping there are just a few word changes here and there, and maybe some minor comments, and we can move forward without necessitating a November meeting. But we'll do what we need to do. But we are planning on filing the plan for public review in November. And basically what that entails is filing in the city clerk's office, a hard copy of it, and putting it up on the city's website for review by the public. That would put us in the position to hold a public hearing for adoption of the plan in December. Okay. All right, so our next steps. So here we are. We are getting very close, very close. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 20th at 4 p.m. And I think I accidentally skipped over our next steps slide. There it is. So working towards our meeting next month is to work with Sharon to finalize that future land use map. We've produced it based upon her comments, but she needs to review it to make sure we understood everything correctly and we got it right. So we have to fine tune that. Once we do that, we'll be able to share that with you along with the draft plan. We need to finalize the implementation plan. You probably noticed that we've got all the tables and items in place. We have not yet identified who's responsible for what and what the priorities levels are. So that's the next step. And that's going to take some work with Sharon to populate those tables. We will continue development of the plan document. Sharon and Jen and the rest of the team will be reviewing it, getting my team comments. So we'll get that to where it needs to be to share with you. And then we'll review it at our September meeting. So that.
Francisco, PJ has his hand.
Oh, I'm
up.
sorry, PJ, I didn't see your little hand raised.
No worries.
Go
Um,
ahead.
Do you mind, I guess it's a slide back in terms of the timing for September. There we go. All right, so September, we're in advance, we're receiving the draft document, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
So
At least a week ahead of that meeting.
Okay, can you, I mean, is it going to be basically, you know, the entire thing, so to speak, just so we can kind of
It
get
will be. Yeah, we'll send you PDFs of that document. It's close to 200 pages. And so you'll get it all at once, and that will represent the document. It will be completed to our personal satisfaction. It will be representative of a complete product that it deserves your review, and that we will be receptive of any input that you have.
Okay, so are we reviewing it prior to it going to the Planning Commission, Council, and Westcott?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
So then
Yeah.
the timing would be probably October then, right? For the
Well, no, our meeting is September 20th. I'm not expecting you to instruct us to start from scratch or anything like that. You know, I imagine you'll have some comments. I think we could address those by the end of the month. And it would be my goal by the end of September to get that document to Commission, Council, and WestCog for review.
Let me just say as well, PJ, that the goals, strategies, and actions, the complete draft of all of those, we had sent around once we worked through them all. So those aren't anything kind of new. Unless as you're going through it, we have some new strategy and action that, you know, pops into your head, but we work through that whole list, which is kind of the middle section of the implementation plan, without, you know, the themes and or the agency or responsible agency or priority level filled in. But all the things that we talked about doing to meet the goal for that component of the plan, you have seen that that's been done for a long time. And I mean, we could share that with you if you want to see it beforehand. But I'm just saying there's nothing real significantly new there. It's just all the background, existing conditions, and all the background that sets you up to get to those action items.
all right. So then we'd be submitting it for the October council meeting, though. That's my point, right? Because if we're reviewing it September 20, and we need to.
So let me just clarify, because maybe it's the council to review by council. I'm not anticipating, we're going to send it to the city council members to review. But I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
We're not required to be on an agenda.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't have to be at a public hearing in front of council. We don't have to be on their agenda. We just have to share it with them for comment.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
Now-
yes, I'd love to get, and yes, we endorse the plan as the city council for the city of Danbury. There's council members on this committee who will share kind of the process and any questions, and it will obviously answer questions and address comments. But right, it's we would want their endorsement, but it's not statutorily required.
Right. The planning commission is the adopting body.
Correct.
Council is advisory, and commission is not required to modify the plan based upon council's comments. But that being said, we want them to be on board as much as possible, because if this, you know, substantial elements of this plan are going to get done, they need to be invested. But I mean, PJ, you bring up an important point. Those entities have 30 days to review. We would hope can get us review in a shorter period. If for some reason we haven't received feedback by the time of our regular October meeting schedule, which is the 20th, we could consider pushing that meeting if possible, to give us time to get the feedback so we have something to discuss.
Okay.
So that'll be in play a little bit.
And if I may, just one other question. I'm all for setting a record for our quickest meeting, but just one other thing. I wanted to see, is there sort of a compilation of comments, feedbacks that were collected, gathered from the breakout sessions and other sort of meetings that were had over the last month? I'm just curious. We don't need to go through it now. I'm just curious if we can kind of get that as an aside, just to see if some of those were incorporated in updated.
Yeah, we have all the public ones, all the public events that we had, whether it's the focus groups, the in-person public meeting, virtual public meeting, the survey results. That's all in the appendix of this plan. And Sharon, I could probably send that section to them tonight,
Yeah.
right? So I'll get it over to you and Jen to share with them. If you guys want to, get into that's fine. It's just a documentation of everything we heard.
Yeah, I mean, I guess PJ, if your question is about the individual sessions, like I know I met with you and we met 2 times with some of the committee members. We incorporated those comments into the plan that we ended up coloring and writing all over and sending a PDF to Francisco so that his team could prepare the plan you saw tonight. We haven't even seen that yet either, to make sure the colors are right and everything's right. But again, there are areas that we talked about that maybe could be a little higher density than they are now, downtown, in the downtown or just off the downtown area. There's little pockets of what we call the neighborhood commercial that maybe we want to call the neighborhood commercial mixed use, like Francisco said. Like we need to go, in fact, Jen and I were just talking, we need to go through that map to make sure that it like represents kind of our thoughts and our discussions with you individual members. And then I know, like Shay wants, everybody will get a chance to take a look at it. My thought as well is that we would print it out at 24 by 36 and just, I mean, you guys we'll have a PDF of it so you could zoom in, but we'll have the map printed out in the office as well. So if you really want to, come in and stare at a map like we do, and we can compare it to, the old map, and you can see where the changes kind of are. But yeah, the documentation of that is represented on the map that Francisco and his team have prepared.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Francisco,
Yeah.
can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, Paul. Yep.
Just to sort of amplify what PJ said, the council's never really played a part. POCD, I don't expect them to play much of a part in this one. I don't even recall the council being notified when the last one was done, let alone the one before that one. So I'm not expecting too much activity from the council as a body, but individual members, I'm sure, will want to weigh in. My concern about the October Delta is that we're going to be given the draft in September, and I guess at that meeting, or maybe it'll be given to us before the meeting, hopefully. So at that meeting, we'll be able to weigh in if there's any changes that we conceivably would like to see. And that could be a full roundtable discussion. What I would like to see is a meeting in October that pulls all those changes, assuming that there are any. And this could be optional because in September we may all say, hey, that's great, print it, bind it. But if it turns out that there are some changes that are requested by the panel, I'd like to see the October meeting discussing the incorporated changes before this plan is released to the other bodies, so that in October we finally sign off on it. We say, to the best of our ability, this is it. Then it goes out to the other parties, and then, in other words, we just add one more meeting, which may last a half hour, may last 45 minutes, whatever. I'm a little concerned about getting this in September, requesting changes, and then in October we don't come back to see how it works with the changes together. That's my concern. And again, it may not even lead to that, because in September, after we've looked at this plan for a couple of weeks, I'm going to print mine because I'm not that good with PDFs and draw on it and circle it and stuff if I think that some changes are needed, and then I present that in September. But it may be, it's entirely possible, since you're saying that we've seen most of this already. It may be that in September we just say, hey, that's great. But if we don't, if some things pop up, I'd like to pencil in an optional meeting where we can tie everything together after the suggestions are made, and then go forward. But again, I'll defer to the committee. I'm just one guy here, but that's my concern. Not
The only
necessarily the
issue
council.
with that, the only issue with that timeline, Paul, is that pushes us into January for adoption, because there's a minimum 65-day period that gets started once we submit to council and to WestCog and the commission for their review. And we can't hold a public hearing earlier than 65 days following that submission. So if we want to wrap this up by the end of the year, we need to work backwards from the latest potential public hearing date that we could schedule, figure out where that puts us in terms of when we need to deliver the document to those bodies by, and then figure out what may be needed to follow up from our September meeting in terms of making sure that we heard you correctly and made the revisions as needed.
Well, that's the question. Do we have to finish this up by the end of the year? Is that an arbitrary date that you guys are just comfortable with, or is that by statute? You've got a hard date.
Not by
December 30th.
statute. It's not, your plan is not expiring. It's not by statute. It's just our project timeline and goals.
Right. So, yeah,
You know.
so I would say we're not adverse to doing that. We've built a little time in, but we also have a contract with a consultant for X amount of time. I want to be mindful of that. And let's just see what kind of comments come back from everybody. If we have to shift it a couple of weeks, I'm sure we could, we can do that. But the goal was to, stay on the time frame, and I want to be sure when we send it to you, Jen and myself and Francisco are comfortable with the document as it reads, and then give you enough time before the September meeting, to read it yourself. So I would say, again, we're not adverse to an additional meeting or a couple of weeks, bumping it out a couple of weeks, but we do need to be mindful that, we have a contract with a consultant and his team have been really good and fabulous. And we need to try to get this done.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. I mean, it's a financial constraint, so that's important.
Yeah, but we're going to do it right. Let's see, we're going to do it right. I guess the bottom line is we need to do it right.
I got that, but there are reasons for this. That was sort of where I was going. There are reasons for that date. In rereading the remaining project schedule slide here, it says September we review the draft, and then it's handed out to everybody else, and then we review the feedback in October. And then we have a final review in this committee in November. That's where I was going. I wanted a final review before we went forward that incorporated all the changes, if there were any. And I see that in November. And then the December thing is the public hearing for adoption. So maybe if we had to, and I'm not saying that we're going to have to, but maybe if we had to, there could be another discussion, a second discussion in November or something, or early December. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll work it out if we need. Yeah, if we need to, we'll work it out.
I see a little room in there. That's what I need. I may need, the committee may need a little room. I'm not saying
my goal is to finish up my review, mine and Jen's review, this week, get our comments back so that we get you this document like right after Labor Day. Give Francisco some time to just make some edits. I'm not anticipating major map changes or anything like that, but and then that would give you several weeks before the meeting And if anybody on the committee needs us to print, because it is a lot of pages and they are in color, just let us know, and I'll go find a couple of reams from some other department. No, I'm just kidding. We'll print it out for you if you want, if you prefer a hard copy, because
Okay.
it's easier to read.
No, that's fine. And then finally, I don't remember what we did last year in November, December, but if we have the meetings at the time we're having them now, we're bumping into Thanksgiving and Christmas on both those meetings. So maybe we could pull them forward a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, once we get through September and the comments and figure it out and set the actual dates for, we'll be very mindful of the holiday
Okay.
schedule. Yeah, absolutely.
Movie.
Great. Anybody else have any comments?
Other than the fact that it looks great, and I just couldn't be happier about it. It's really, to sit here and look at that and see it sort of coming to life. So well done, Francisco. Thank you.
This is my work. This is my reading document for all of you who can see, flipping through the pages. So
Good, nice piece of work. Thank you.
Yeah. And the good thing about it too, Francisco, is some of the housing related things are already kind of done and populated from the affordable housing plan.
Yeah.
Put that in. So,
Yeah.
that section is basically done. So that's a good thing. Great. Okay. So that is the plan. If Francisco, you could send them the appendices.
Yeah, well.
Versions, send them to us, and Jen will
yes,
send them
right.
out this week. And then you'll look for something from us right after Labor Day, well in advance of that September meeting, and then just let us know if you want us to print it. That's all. We'll do it. All right.
Let me just say this before we wrap up. The research that you guys have done has been of tremendous importance to me personally. There were so many things I learned about this city. I've been born and raised in this city. My family's been here forever. And there were things in here that not only I had no idea about, but were completely counterintuitive. And that is information that I'm telling anybody who wants to listen, because it's very important information, whether it's the mill rates compared to other mill rates in Connecticut or Fairfield County, or this crazy thing about the southern part of the city that has more housing turnover than the central part, things like that really jump out. Or the thing I was discussing this week about the number 1 and 2 apartment and housing occupancy are 1 and 2 people. In a city like Danbury, nobody would ever believe that unless you showed it to them in black and white. That the research that this, and I was not expecting this when I joined this project, but to me, what would normally be the tail of the dog, to me, is the dog itself. The research has just been phenomenal, and I really want to thank you guys for doing this. It was a tour de force of research.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, everybody. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to just shut my phone off for 1 second. Hold on. Oh. I'm sorry. I'm the only one in the house. And that's an actual landline, if you believe it. Because the cell service is so bad here. But okay, so thank you again, Francisco. We have a plan of action. We'll get everybody, like we said, everything you need to review it, and look forward to our discussion next month. So if everybody's done, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Arnie?
So moved.
Second, a motion by Arnie, seconded by Paul. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month, and we'll talk before then.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
Take care.